is a reflection of how committed you are to focusing on your shit, molding and shaping and developing your ideas and your craft so that when it's time for you to make your rounds, you gon' fly.
People only root for people who don't need it. Like the amount of times when I was on my lonely path where I was too different from the friends that I had, but not successful enough to be friends with the people that I wanted to be friends with. That's when you want people to root for you. That's when you want people to support you. Once you've already won, people are like, he's amazing, he's so good. But like, that's the time when you need it the least. And so you always have to be the person who roots for you before everyone else does. And it's usually a single clap in the auditorium for a very long period of time. It is a slow clap that's just you rooting for you. And that visual, I think, is one that you can kind of take because it is... People struggle to do things alone. And the path of the exceptional person is one of an exception, which means that you are not with other people. And rather than fighting that or bemoaning it, see it as an indicator that you're on the right path. Because if everyone else were cheering you on, then it means you're not in the right place, because it means you're just like everyone else, and that's not where you want to be.
Life isn't fair at all. At all. So what are you going to do about it? I knew that no one was coming back to help me. No one was going to miracle me to be somebody special. So mentality is the only thing that gets us through life. I was an underdog. We are all underdogs in life. Even the baddest person in the world should think that way. So you should always have I've never arrived mentality. And the can't hurt me mentality is no matter where you come from, the sewer or wherever you think you're from. When I got out of the sewer, I got to the road and looked around and said, can't hurt me. Nothing should be able to hurt you. If you believe that, it starts to become true.
Be the guy who embraces the ugly, the miserable. Be the guy who embraces hard work, the grind. Don't be afraid of being hurt. Don't be afraid of sacrificing some blood.
You know, there comes a day, man. Everyone's gonna have this day. There comes a day where being average, being mediocre is just sickening to you. It's just sickening. It makes you want to throw up. Because you've seen people with far less talent than you. As you're growing up with them, their childhood buddies, whatever else, they didn't have what you had. Yet now they're fucking to become something that you haven't. There comes that day. It's either when you're young, you know, and it strikes you on the baseball field because you're sick of striking out. Or it's when you get fired from your 5th job, you know, and your wife and kids are on your ass because you don't know how to support them anymore. There comes a fucking day where push comes to shove. Where being mediocre, being like average and shit just fucking burns and sucks so much. You can't deal with it one more day. And you get off your fucking ass. And you create something that's always been there. It's always been inside of you trying to come out. But you've never wanted to unwrap it because it's too much fucking pain and commitment.
I'm a big fan of power follows the blame finger. So like wherever you point the blame finger is where the power follows. And so it's like if you point it at the government has the power. If you point it at your spouse and say like it's their fault that I'm not in shape, it's their fault, they never let me do anything, it's like, well, you're giving them all the power.
At 13 years old.
13 years old. That's the
you
deal
were
I made.
Clear about it.
Crystal clear.
And where did inspiration come from?
The love of the game. The love of the game. The challenge. Like I would watch Magic play. I'd watch Michael play. And I would see them do these unbelievable things. And I'd say, you know, can I get to that level? I don't know, but let's find out. Let's find out. And so that curiosity to see where I could push this thing led me down that path, I think.
I had a summer where I played basketball when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And here I come playing and I don't score 1 point the entire summer. Not a free throw, nothing. Not a lucky shot, not a breakaway layup, 0 points. And I remember crying about it and being upset about it. And my father just gave me a hug and said, listen, whether you score 0 or score 60, I'm gonna love you no matter what.
Wow.
Now that is the most important thing that you can say to a child. Because from there I was like, okay, that gives me all the confidence in the world to fail. I have the security there. But to hell with that, I'm scoring 60. And from there, I just went to work. And I stayed with it. I kept practicing. I think that's when the idea of understanding a long-term view became important, because I wasn't going to catch these kids in a week. I wasn't going to catch them in a year, right? So that's when I sat down and said, okay, this is going to take some thought, right? What do I want to work on first? All right, shooting. All right, let's knock this out. Let's focus on this. Half a year, 6 months, do nothing but shoot. Right. After that, all right, creating your own shot, and you focus. So I started creating a menu of things. When I came back the next summer, I was a little bit better. I scored.
Yeah,
it wasn't much,
right,
but I scored.
And this is 12, 13.
12, 13. And then 14 came around, back half of 13, 14 years old, and then I was just killing everyone. And it happened in 2 years. And I wasn't expecting it to happen in 2 years, but it did, because what I had to do was work on the basics and the fundamentals. Well, they relied on their athleticism and their natural ability. And because I stick to the fundamentals, it just caught up to them. And then my body, my knees stopped hurting. I grew into my frame, and then it was game over.
Wow.
Were you always competitive from the day you were born? You were super competitive?
Competitive with things that I participate in. So I'll put it to you this way. So basketball for me was the most important thing. So everything I saw, whether it was TV shows, whether it was books I read, people I talked to, everything was done to try to learn how to become a better basketball player. Everything. And so when you have that point of view, then literally the world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft. So at 13 years old, I had a I had a kill list. And so, they used to do these rankings. It was Street and Smith basketball rankings. And I was nowhere to be found, because I was like 6'4", scrawny, like 160 pounds soaking wet. So I was like 57 on the list. And so I would look at 56, 55, all the way up to number 1, who these players are, what club teams they played for. So when we go on an AAU travel circuit, I got to hunt them down. Right? And so that became my mission in high school, is to check off every other person, all those 56 other names, hunt them down and knock them down. So when we played at 13, I would size you up and see what your strengths and weaknesses are. How do you approach the game? Are you silly about it? Are you goofy about it? Are you good at it just because you're bigger and stronger than everybody else? Right? Or is there actually thought and skill that you put into it? Right? And when I'd play to my weaknesses. I always work on the things during those games that I was weak at. Left hand, pull-up jump shot, post game. Right? So I have a strategy.
What was really your work ethic like, and for how long did you stay disciplined?
Well, I mean, every day. Since 20 years. It was an everyday process, and trying to figure out strengths and weaknesses. For example, jumping ability. My vertical was a 40, it wasn't a 46 or a 45. My hands are big, but they're not massive, right? So you got to figure out ways to strengthen them, so your hands are strong enough to be able to palm a ball and do the things that you need to do. Quickness, I was quick, but not insanely quick. I was fast, but not ridiculously fast, right? So I had to rely on skill a lot more. I had to rely on angles a lot more. I had to study the game a lot more. And but I enjoyed it though. So like from the time I can remember when I started watching the game, I studied the game, and it just never changed.
What does losing feel like to you?
It's exciting.
Why is it exciting?
Because it means you have different ways to get better. There's certain things that you can figure out that you can take advantage of, right? Certain weaknesses that were exposed that you need to shore up. Right, so it was exciting. It sucks to lose,
right,
but the hardest thing is to face that stuff. That's a really, really tough challenge.
How did you get mentally and emotionally so strong where it doesn't bother you?
Well, you got to look at the reality of the situation. Like for me, it's not. You kind of got to get over yourself, right? And then after that, it's okay. Well, why did those air balls happen? Got it. I didn't have the legs. So you look at the shot, every shot was online, but every shot was short. Right? I got to get stronger. I got to train differently. The weight training program that I'm doing, I got to tailor it for an 82-game season so that when the playoffs come around, my legs are stronger and that ball gets there. So I look at it with rationale and say, okay, well, the reason why I shot air balls is because my legs aren't there. I go, well, next year they'll be there.
You have to do the hard stuff and watch that game and study that game to not make those mistakes over and over again just because you weren't brave enough to face it. So
it's not limited to music, that point of view. It's not just about making music, it's just about, you know, a mentality, in my opinion, just, you know, how to take your lumps in life, you know what I mean? Because you're gonna take your L's, you're gonna have your ups and downs. So just a philosophy or a point of view on how to look at the journey.
The game gonna test you, you know what I mean? The game, everything gonna test you if it's worthwhile.
Words is powerful, you know? The ability to articulate, you know, you could really impact people.
You used to getting treated a certain way, you used to getting received a certain way, and then you step back because of your sacrifice.
Art support.
When I first came into like being a teenager, and when I started getting doors closed on me, I just was like, well, I'm gonna do like everybody else, and I'm gonna pop my trunk. I saw examples of it in different categories and felt automatically when I got to the age of wanting to become self-made or support my own ambitions, you know, that's the step. My advice would be define who you are and what you are and be clear on that, meditate on that, and then live and die by it. Can't break the rules, the fundamental rules. Be a man of your word. Do what you say you're gonna do. Respect people the way you would like to be respected. You know, my reach was the people that knew me. So when you really think about it, who put me on? Those people.
Yeah.
You know, and they spent $5 with me. My sales pitch used to be, you know, if it's garbage, throw it out the window, bro. I know your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Cause it's my lifestyle. I'm speaking to your lifestyle. It's very concise what the content of this record is. But if it's garbage, toss it out the window. I just want $5. And people supported me when they didn't have a reason to, just based on, you know what, you a young person trying, and I'm gonna support the ambition.
It's not limited to music, that point of view. It's not just about making music, it's just about, you know, a mentality, in my opinion, just, you know, how to take your lumps in life, you know what I mean? Because you're gonna take your L's, you're gonna have your ups and downs. So just a philosophy or a point of view on how to look at the journey, you know what I mean? You got where you at, you got where you're trying to be. And then you got all this shit in between that's not gonna matter when you get here. You know what I mean? So I feel like, and it was a way of inspiring myself also, just like a pep talk I was telling myself while I was in a vulnerable moment.
It's just speaking to like the combo you have with yourself when you outside of the opportunities, but you know your actions and your mentality are success, but the reality of your situation isn't.
You said it, it's about just the authenticity and the honesty. I'm not in, you know, a culture of going outside hustling every day no more. I'm not in a culture of, you know, being involved with gang activity anymore. At that moment, for me to make art, I had to reflect on reality, you know? And so it would be untrue. If I was talking about balling or talking about owning businesses, I didn't. But as my life changed and as the reality, what I was actually living changed, I had to change what fueled the art, you know what I mean? And I think that's what keep it accessible to people. You got people that, not to cut you off again,
No.
you got people that been removed from the streets for years and it's still what's the dominant narrative in their music, and we lose touch with it because it don't have the same texture as when it was actually what they was doing.
Things I would change is the things that affected other people in a negative way. I don't feel like it's worth it. You know what I mean? To hurt people or to like your actions to be so driven by ambition that they rub other people the wrong way. I would change those things. Anything else? Nah, that's the testimony.
That's you.
That's what gave me my understanding, was that I can reflect in them moments of being confused. You're gonna lay in the bed you make. You're not gonna get away with nothing in terms of the energy. You know what I mean? You might beat the camera or the police. They might not catch you for what you're doing, but the energy is always gonna return to you. So when you just living in this cycle of being negative all day and just putting out negativity and that's the only energy you putting out, it's gonna return to you in different form than you put it out in. So I would just say, you know, master your energy. Do your best to master your energy and what you put out, you know, and unless that's what you want, you know, because you entitled to whatever you want to create, whatever experience you want to create for yourself. But if you're tired of that shit, adjust the energy. You know what I mean? As best you can, adjust what you wake up thinking and what you say, and then lastly what you do. And that's not an easy thing to do because it's such a pressure in these areas to just go by the way things are. And don't quit. I think everybody get tested. Everybody get that game tested. If you don't quit, you're going to learn and you're going to figure things out. That's really the secret to everything, is how much you can take. You know what I'm saying? How much pressure, how much stress, how much insecurity in your decisions, all of that you can take before you say this to uncomfortable. I'm going to just go back to being, I'm not going to challenge myself. I'm going to just be whatever your version of regular is. So you just don't quit. I think you're gonna be able to get the education that power you through your experience.
I think as human beings, everybody has a natural gift and a natural passion, but then you go outside and you get influenced and you feel pressure from what's going on outside. And so, I read one time, like, would you rather be at war with yourself and at peace with the world, or at peace with yourself and at war with the world?
You don't have resources, you in survival mode. So being in survival mode automatically rules out a lot of things because you don't care about morality, because you don't experience morality. You experience, the need to survive. You don't experience, fairness. You don't experience planning for the future. You just experience my ribs touching. You know what I mean? And it's better me than you. And, it's a survival instinct that kick in. So I think once you get out of the survival mode, your morals come back closer to your daily decision making. You start thinking about what's right and what do I believe in. But until you get out of survival mode, you ain't got time to be worrying about right and wrong. You worrying about bottom line. You know what I mean? By any means necessary.
Never make moves under pressure. I try not to. On Crenshaw, I've said this is gonna be the first time I give my fan base a directive and say, if you want to reciprocate for the inspiration that I've given you over the course of these 5 mixtapes, here's how you do it. Proud to pay. It's a $100 CD. Come to the pop-up shop. So I had won over enough people that we sold out the first 1,000 in the first day. The game gonna test you. You know what I mean? The game, everything gonna test you if it's worthwhile.
Right.
And you're gonna make decisions based on what you care about more. And without even being conscious that you're getting tested, you're gonna be getting tested. And so you're gonna have decisions to make. Should I, continue this lifestyle, whether it's shopping, clothes, whatever your lifestyle is, or do I gotta sacrifice